Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements, here from Maui, Hawaii. November 8th, 2021. I'm back, happy to be back, to begin this new series. It came to me yesterday. Reflections on the Dharma life. Lessons. I wanted to write insights, but they keep evolving. Lessons, insights, pitfalls, blind spots, essentially the exploration of denial, self-deception, realizations, the joy of this wild, I want to put crazy, uber crazy, mystical Dharma human adventure that I call the Dharma life. The Dharma is the Sanskrit word. Many of you know the equivalent in Buddhist Pali, Dhamma, slightly different. But as I understand it, the oldest word to point to freedom, perhaps the most precious word today, the most precious vocation for all of us in our lives today, freedom, to use our liberty, to understand the value of liberty. As it's been said, there are some things worse than dying. And front and center is the power of liberty, freedom, freedom in action, democracy in action, consciousness in dynamic, transformational, evolutional awakening, the vocation of mindful, intelligent choice-making at the confluence of consciousness, conscience, and dignity. Dignity, conscience, and consciousness. The confluence of those three invisible but very discernible textures of consciousness, how they're employed within the atmosphere of the mind and the body in context to make good on the promise of our human lives to foster the radiance, the safety, the security of freedom, and our responsibility to this vocation as freedom fighters. And I really equate the word Dharma life to freedom fighters, to make good on that promise with oneself. So welcome to this new series. Today will be very short, an introduction, and I will move into it progressively over the course of the next coming days, God willing. I was recently in Vancouver, where I was blessed by my choice and the good-hearted beauty of my beloved daughter, Bella Clements Earl. We celebrated her 15th birthday. What a treasure, a gem beyond my own daughter, a beloved human mind and heart. Also, my soul sister, her godmother, Dr. Janine Davies. I had a chance to explore and to celebrate. I also had a chance to look through my belongings, which Janine has brilliantly kept in her upstairs studio. And I was sorting through these things, which is really the essence of the essence of the essence. There's very little left after my mom and dad passed away, and I went through their belongings and took the essence of theirs, and my brother took some of it and I took some of it, and this is all that I have left. And I'm so grateful that I have only this. And I was looking through it and seeing my the serendipity of choices over decades of life, photographs, images, my monk's robes, my monk's bowls, my monk's sandals, the notes that I wrote by hand over the decades in and out of monasteries around the world, primarily in South Asia, but principally in Burma, back in the day before the keyboard was really functional. And I would handwrite everything. Maybe you did the same thing. And I saw these notes and I preserved them. And I brought quite a few of them back. I'm going to have them transcribed and hopefully support their free use in the world if there's interest. Paintings, sacred objects from India, Dharamsala, letters to lovers and friends and mom and dad, friends. It was a real journey of a lifetime, something that you do when you're young or you're middle or you're old. Who knows when mortality sets in, and it becomes real for each of us to awaken to the naturalness of transition. And I was able to see all of these essence things, and it really brought up for me, who am I today at 70? And all along this journey, beginning yoga at 17 and the psychedelic exploration even at 15, and poetry and philosophy and romance and eroticism and love with my lovers and my first love and my second and onward, and even sacred celibacy and the power of eroticized, sacred, sapiosexual Ubuntu, the power of consciousness to play and eroticize and tantrify with other and self, to go beyond in this field of shared awakening. The bliss, the anguish, letters of torment, poems of horror. And isn't that the success of a life, to empower everything as learning, right? That's the gift. But it's not so easy in these deep cul-de-sacs, if not valleys, where we slip over the precipice and we cling on to the invisible, and we use trauma and anguish and torment. And there's vials I've seen that I've saved for whatever reason of antidepressants, clonazepam, Valium, modafinil, relics of historical necessities to help keeping me in process with the beauty of being and not fall victim to the complexities of consciousness. I saw a book that I kept among only a few. I gave a lot to my daughter. I took a lot back with me. 50 years of psychotherapy, and the world is getting worse. Was it James Hillman, whom I met way back in the day? 50 years of psychotherapy, 50 years of mindfulness, and the world has gotten worse, and me too. Look where we're at today, right? Who could ever imagine? This isn't going to be a series of tragedy and horror and complexity, nor is it going to be a positivity porn fest. I'm much more of a heartfelt realist, a satirist, at times humorist, a comedian, even at times radical, dark, gallows, beautiful, luminous humor. I've got this film, many of you know, that I'm eagerly writing, a 7-part series, Extinction, X-rated, Dead Man Walking, Freedom Never Dies, raw war. There are some things in this life, it's been said by many, that are far worse than dying. To lose our liberty, to lose our conscience and our dignity to rise up, to speak up, to act up, to disobey. The opposite of Milgram's experiment, where people were blindly ordered to increase electrical current to actors that were recorded with degrees of pain, even to the point where they were being told by a medical authority and dressed in white, turn up the dial. And despite the screams, and even on the dial where it said this could be fatal, they listened to the doctor, to the medical, to the authority. the gene of obedience even against our own conscience. How do you learn that lesson? How do you impart that lesson? How do you impart freedom fighter over complicity and collusion and the unknown joy that comes with absconding from conscience and ethical courage? Just that dynamic alone of how to understand the characteristics and manifestation and the textures of collusion with evil, with denigration, with xenophobia. Books and books and books, but how do you really bring awareness to that, to have the ethical, moral courage and bravery to sift out of that the resolve not to comply with orders, mandates? I've had how many tests in the last week? It's totally insane. I can't wait to read Robert Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. One could say we are truly at war today, thus the film title, Raw War. I'm not looking at guns and ammunition, although I do believe at times the necessity of standing up by all means necessary, like my sisters and brothers in Burma. They've declared a defensive war on the terrorist organization run by the former General Min Aung Hlaing, known by the acronym MASAC, M-A-H, State Administration Council, SAC. MASAC is the new Boko Haram, Khmer Rouge, Taliban, Al-Qaeda on the planet. This man has lost it. And governments around the world, the United Nations, security councils, what lessons could be given to them? This isn't just some spiritual rap for the next couple of weeks, but how to really move and motivate and elevate and ignite and explode at the core level of denial. Leaders. The absence of true leadership in the world today is so painfully evident in this weirdness, this increasing momentum of do as I say, do as I say. Screw you, dude. But that's not an easy thing to say when they take your live stream down, when they take your Twitter account down, when they do this and that to you and your family. And look at the whistleblowers out of China talking about the wisdom of conscience and revealing to us the true sources of the Faucian-funded Wuhan Institute laboratory gain of function. Look at the viruses that this gentleman has funded to support lethality. 5 million human beings have died, so to speak, of COVID-19, and he's unwilling to take any accountability for his role in that? What? And yet billions around the world are eagerly rolling up their sleeves. I'm not anti-vax. I've had a lot of inoculations. But I am anti-authority and terrorism and obedience and all the things that come with do as I say or else. Look at the courageous people in athletics today, in football, in basketball, in politics. Look at Robert Kennedy Jr. alone. Read his book, coming up. Order it on Amazon. Make it become the mega bestseller ever. The True Anthony Fauci. Let's look at his year of research. My colleague Fergus Harlow and I spent nearly 10 years researching the psychology of totalitarianism in our beloved country of Myanmar. Through the filter, the hard-earned wisdom filter, of freedom fighters who had been imprisoned up to 22 years for their right to freedom and choosing to speak up and to act up nonviolently at that time and refusing to comply with evil, torture, assassination, disappearances. We brought forth those 4 books. Burma's Voices of Freedom. It should have been subtitled A Global Field Guide to confront tyranny, obedience, and totalitarianism in all of its form, even called American Democracy Incorporated. Do as I say. This series of talks that I'm going to give, I'm going to really lose it in the flow of serendipity. 50 years of mindfulness, and we're still there watching our breath, in breath, out breath. In breath, out breath. Can meditation really be taken not from the cushion to the world, but from the world to the cushion, reversing the entire paradigm of off the mat? We're not selling studio time and online teacher trainings anymore. That's anathema. It's done. We've now realized that Dharma, spirituality, yoga is a vocation of living alive in the world, and occasionally we may go to some sacred environment, but that sacred retreat space is everywhere, always, all times, with everybody showing up, not selling our soul out to loot and finances. The capitalistic system, clearly, we're in an anguished cry to see the folly of commodification and exchange and money in the way in which it's come down over the last few hundred years. Could there be a rebirth on a collective level? Yes, let's participate in it. I want to really share from my own heart the lessons I've learned that I keep on learning, the pitfalls, the blind spots, the addictions. I don't use addiction in a negative way. I use it clearly to show the vulnerability of the human spirit when it's more and more true to itself. It needs coping mechanisms. Was it J. Krishnamurti that said it's no measure of success to be adjusted to a profoundly sick society? Was it the famous radical psychiatrist Artie Lang who said insanity is a sane response to an insane world? Was it the Buddha who outlined the Four Noble Truths, talked about Sampapalapawasa, circular conversations, lokia, delusional illusions? We're living in a fake world. We know it now. Look at what's being said and done. And we're imprisoned in that fake world. No, we're not. My 50 years of Dharma were about radically interrupting the chains on me. You could try all you want to put them on me, but I refuse to put my wrists out, my feet out. I'm unchaining them, and that's the Dharma life, isn't it? That's the revolution of the spirit that Aung San Suu Kyi brought to her people. That's the revolution of the spirit that U Win Tin, U Tien U, U Chi Mong, U Win Tain, hundreds of other women and men brought to the people of Burma, and they're bringing it to the world today. And I want to be a revolutionary who brings global revolution, world Dharma to the people, to the unborn. This series of talks is for the unborn. Something larger than my own family, my daughter, my friends. Something larger than political prisoners alone, but for the future of political prisoners. If there was a digital book that could be thrown into a prison cell, I would hope that this particular series of talks would be thrown digitally into a prison cell, wherever it may be, even if it's the prison cell of planet Earth. Dharma is the release from self-imposed slavery, self-imposed totalitarianism. I want to really talk about the role of meditation, the role of monasticism, the role of mindfulness, the role of yoga, the role of self-care, the role of psychedelics, the role of psychotherapy, the role of travel, the role of arts and friendship and mentoring, the role of sexuality and partnership and creativity, the role of activism, the role of disobedience, right? Living disobedience as a vocation of a new form of yoga, the asana of disobedience and the asana of radiance. So let's get down, get passionate, get vulnerable, get real. I invite you to call in your friends. This is a call to action. Human agency at this time is called for, clearly. We know that. And so may I invite you to please share this video if you're feeling inclined, to like, to be kept aware of these ongoing talks. It's on podcast. We have it up on Google and Apple and Lisbon and YouTube and SoundCloud. And from my heart to yours, I'm grateful to be back in my little blessed, sacred piece of land anointed to me by a blessed soul brother on this exquisite island in this tragedy called samsara. And yes, that's the duality of life, the ability to rise up. And that's the beauty of the Dharma, the beauty of the spiritual life, the beauty of really choosing the vocation of mindful intelligence to push back, and at the same time rise up. And as it's been said, there are some things worse than dying, losing our freedom, not acting when we could, using our liberty for the liberty of others. This is our moment. This is our week. This is our month. This is our year. We're at a turning point, an inflection point. And may all of us do our part to anoint our dignity, our conscience, and pause in this day and feel, what does it mean to brave up, to feel the beauty of moral courage? Where can I expand in my expression through thought, speech, and action to live in civil disobedience, spiritual disobedience, Dharma disobedience, revolution in action, through consciousness with consciousness, to employ perhaps the most precious word that I've ever learned, bhavana, the beautification of consciousness. Who could ever imagine the things that we do that we never believe that we can do because of lack of confidence, the lack of support? I could not be who I am without friends, without lovers. Thank you, lovers. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, mentors. And the great Kalyanamitas, the men and women who've been willing to be tolerant of me, to not collude with me, and to support truth over fear. So great to be back. I'll see you tomorrow, 9:30, God willing, here from Maui. From my heart to yours, have a beautiful day. I'm really kind of jazzed to dive into this new series of 50 years of the Dharma life, 50 years of mindfulness, and the world has gotten worse. The lessons learned, the insights, the pitfalls. Pray I have the courage to speak about the blind spots, the addictions, the denial, the deceptions. And let's leave with one quality, self-honesty. What does that mean to you? I mean, really intimate. I wanted to use radical, but intimate self-honesty, where you go, where do I lie to myself? Where am I in denial? Where can I see the rose growing and take my hand off the thorn? I think there's a lot of pain inherently in self-dishonesty, and the beauty of bhavana, the beautification through self-honesty. So have a beautiful day, and see you tomorrow. Thank you from my heart.